Welcome to HCA Talks Health. I'm Zina LaRue, and with me today is Debi Mason. So Debi is one of my wonderful colleagues at HCA. She's a mentor for Module 20, and she also plays a key role at the Hub. So we're absolutely thrilled to have her part of the team. But in today's episode, Debi will share a little bit more on her own journey and how she went from working in a really high-pressure corporate environment, pushing herself to the brink of burnout, and eventually finding a path as a health coach. So we'll talk about post-corporate body burnout, reclaiming health, and she'll also share with us more about where she is today and what she's doing now and how she's working as a health coach today, supporting other people's health as well. So welcome, Debi. It's so lovely to have you.
Thank you so much, Zina. What a lovely introduction.
Thank you.
I'm really looking forward to our chat today.
Yeah, so let's start a little bit with your own story. So I gave a bit of an introduction there, but tell us more about it. Give us the details of how it ultimately led to burnout.
It's an interesting question, Zina. You know, throughout my whole career, I give it my all. I've always given it my all to whatever it is that I put myself into. And I had some fabulous professional success, but during all of that success, I also battled, and really in a very silent way, a lot of health issues. So because of that, I saw countless specialists, and they gave me a diagnosis, or they'd give me a treatment, or I'd have to go for another surgery. And it never really addressed the root cause of what was going on. And while I was working in this high-pressure environment, you know, I got to the end of I'm not the end, but when I was coming to the end of my corporate days, and that was really the height of my professional success. It was a really amazing time in my life. It was a moment in history because I was working for the brand UGG, and I was managing UGG across the whole of Europe. And that moment in history was when we went from almost unknown to a worldwide phenomenon, and it grew dramatically. But behind the scenes, my body was so unhappy. I was struggling because I was living on adrenaline. And I ignored every one of those symptoms and signals, no matter how I felt, whether I was in chronic pain, whether I had this underlying anxiety, when I felt I was tired all the time, I really wasn't sleeping. But I thought, you know what, I can just push through. This is easy. We returned to South Africa, and it took probably about 2 years. And after 2 years, my body just went, it's enough. I've had enough. And I crashed, absolutely crashed. And I had no choice at that stage. I really had to start listening to what my body was saying, not what I had decided I was doing, and not to just keep pushing through.
But it's quite a typical pattern that we see because we work so hard, right, to climb the corporate ladder. So we don't feel like we can just give up, or, you know, we need to push through, even when some health symptoms show up. So what were some of the main symptoms that you were experiencing at that time that were kind of the red flags for you?
So I suppose, you know, looking at that, I think that I never slept. Of course I slept, but I didn't sleep very well. I didn't sleep for very long. I had dreadful issues with my digestion. It was a complete mess. And I constantly had that feeling of unease. I didn't know, I was never comfortable. I was never relaxed. I was never in a state of flow. I was doing what I was doing. I was striving for success, but I was never relaxed. And I also had pain, massive pain. I lived with crippling migraines. So I took a lot of medication because I couldn't function when I had a migraine, but I had to function. So it is exactly like you were saying, it's that corporate ladder. What do? You show up. You push through and you keep doing. So I took all that medication, and really I was living on adrenaline. I was living on pure adrenaline. And I think my nervous system was also taking a massive beating. It was in overdrive all of the time, but I didn't know that at that stage.
So did your production, how productive you were at your job, did that suffer at all, or did it drop at all, or not really? Was it only your health at that stage?
No, it's incredible. I allowed my health to silently go down, but my production and my productivity was outstanding.
Oh,
The reason being is that I was pushed by adrenaline. But there's a big proviso on this. If I look back now, if I could project myself back to those years and did what I was doing today, my productivity would be completely different. Completely different. So I thought I was being highly productive then. And for the state that I was in, I probably was. But if I tackled it now in the state that I'm in with my health, it would be a completely different story. But it was only adrenaline that pushed me through. And that's going to push, I'm going to do, I'm going to drive.
Yeah. And I'm sure there's many people out there listening today who can really resonate with this, right? We just keep on pushing. But what made it difficult for you to stop? So was it that drive? Or when did you recognize that need for change? What made it difficult for you?
You know, it's quite interesting that you asked that question. And there was never enough time to take a breath. There was never enough time to sit and go, let me assess this. And when I did, or I just touched on it, I really wasn't sure what I should do. I didn't know how I could fix it, but I knew it would take some form of time to do that. And so what made it difficult was I went to specialists, many specialists. I saw specialists for endometriosis. I saw them for IBS. I saw them for migraines. I saw them for hormonal dysfunction. I saw every specialist you could name, but nobody ever said to me, what's really going on here? So I get sort of a band-aid fix. So for me, it was really difficult to answer your question, to stop and go, what's going on? Because I didn't really know who to speak to. Everybody I went to, because I didn't have time, so I shoehorned everything in. The people that I did go and speak to gave me a solution for that particular symptom. They didn't look at the whole picture. There was no question about my lifestyle. There was no question about how I was managing this. There was no question about what is really going on for you. So I consequently never asked that question and didn't make the time to ask that question. So it was difficult for me to stop because I was striving. I was like, this is my career. I'm going to be successful. This is what I'm doing. I will push through. So many of us do that, right?
Yeah, come hello high water, I'll succeed. Yeah, exactly.
Exactly. Absolutely.
But it's interesting what you're saying about the idea of no one asking you what's really going on here. They were treating the symptoms for this specific condition. There's pain meds or there's whatever for the migraine, but they're not really stopping and listening to what's going on. And I think that's a big role of a health coach, right? Is to provide someone that opportunity to figure out what is going on for them, to finally have a space to talk freely and to really look at the root cause and the bigger picture. And that's why it's such an important role as a health coach, right? Why it's such an important role in the medical care. But
You're
tell
so
me,
right, Zina. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah, go ahead, please.
Just to say on that point, I didn't have the time, but I had the time to go and see a specialist. If that time had been spent with a health coach, it would have made all the difference in the world. Because I would have had that space to really think about it and then figure out what is going on. How do we look at this holistically? So pivotal, absolutely pivotal. That was the missing piece, the massive missing piece for me.
And for you to also figure out, but what is the one next step that I need to take instead of feeling really overwhelmed because you were experiencing many different symptoms? Where do I even start? But if someone were to support you in that way, it would have given you more clarity, like, okay, this is the next step. So was there like a very specific turning point for you where you realized, okay, something needs to change now?
There was, we were pushing, and then we made a decision. It's a difficult question to answer. When is enough? And most people can't say now it is enough. They wait until the end of a journey or the end of a story. And my husband and I said, well, enough is enough. We've both been on this corporate hamster wheel, pushing, striving, being really successful. And we decided to return to South Africa to look after our parents. it was a brave decision to go, enough is enough, because it was leaving at sort of the height of a person's career. And when we came back, that I still knew that I wasn't well, but it didn't come home to roost yet because I was still running on that adrenaline. So we were doing. It's almost like you take with you what you've learned and you continue. And it took about 2 years for everything to start slowing down. And that's when my body just crashed. So everything I'd experienced came to the fore then. And it was in a very loud, angry, inflamed way.
Yeah, and it's interesting. It's almost the same than, when you're going on a holiday. You think that your body's just going to it's going to rest, but it's often then when you get sick, and it's often then when all these weird symptoms that you haven't been dealing with shows up, right? So even though you did take time off, and even though you did make some changes, it wasn't necessarily the right steps. At that time, you needed more. So where did you start? What did you do next? What were some of the steps that you took?
So one of my very close friends said to me, why don't I go and see a functional nutritionist? And, that was my very first step of hearing something that was outside of a specialist, outside of somebody that was symptom driven, outside of something that was only individual. So I went to this wonderful functional nutritionist, and it was for the very first time I actually felt like I was being heard. Thought somebody's really listening to me, and they could put the whole picture together. We did numerous tests, and that was my start. And that's where I started listening to functional medicine doctor podcasts and diving into research and information, and realized that food was going to be the one place that I had massive control and where I could make a very big change. And for me, that was my very first step, was starting with food. So there were other things like supplementation and lifestyle mitigation, but it was starting with food and starting with how I thought. Our thinking drives our actions, and our thinking is often based on so many beliefs. And are those beliefs assumptions, or are they really beliefs that serve us?
Yeah.
And I wasn't nourishing myself in any way, mean, shape, or form. Not from food, not physically, not mentally, not spiritually, not psychologically, not emotion. So that was really the very first step. So
there was a huge realization for you in that moment, like, I need to nourish myself on different levels. So I'm interested, were you ever curious or interested in the world of health before then? Was it something that piqued your interest at all?
it was. I found it interesting purely because my body was going through all of these dreadful symptoms, and I was sick for decades. So I battled this sort of silent issue that I had, and because of that, I knew quite a bit, but it was from a very myopic point of view. It was everything from one perspective. And suddenly, when I saw this nutritionist, it opened up a world of health to me that I didn't know existed. And when I started listening to functional medicine doctors doing podcasts and doing talks and going to seminars, it opened up a world to me that just spurred my passion and my interest and my drive, and every single thing that I heard, I found fascinating. Every single thing. And every single thing I thought, I can learn more from this. And suddenly I had such a desire to know more. And that it almost consumed my life, because and it still does. I mean, it's something that really I'm passionate about it. And yes, so I had maybe delved into health, but in a completely different way. And suddenly the whole world of health opened up for me in a way that was spectacular, because it was so holistic.
And I guess because it's something that helped you so much, it was something that you really wanted to share with others as well. But so what were some of the things that the functional nutritionist told you to do regarding your food?
So that's really interesting. So we actually, with all the tests that we had come through, she was very much liked supplementation and said that, we had to really support my body, which was pretty depleted at that stage, to support it in the best way that we could, and that supplementation would help. So I obviously went with any and all of her suggestions on that front. And from a food perspective, we had a look at whole foods. That was really the start. How do whole foods nourish you? What do whole foods look like? So sometimes I would eat, and this was through my career, I'd know that a food didn't make me feel good. So instead of changing it or putting something else in, I just didn't eat that. And from not eating, I either got really put on a lot of weight, which sounds really strange, or I would lose weight. But it just all depended on the inflammation in my body at that stage. So she looked very, very much to the whole foods and how could whole foods nourish me? And then what foods would be healing for me? Because I also have histamine intolerance. So most of your box standard foods like bone broth or fermented foods, I couldn't tolerate them at all. My symptoms became worse. Today, I have bone broth. Today, I love fermented foods, but it was all about the healing journey. So it was what foods would really nourish me and would be specific to me and work for me. That was very much part of our journey. And looking at eating in a balanced way. That was her other very big focus, was eat in a balanced way, so that you include all of the macros and all of the micros.
Yeah.
And of course, hydration.
Yeah. And variety, I guess, as well. But, you know, you could so easily your gut was a big issue for you. So you could have so easily thought, okay, I need to fix my gut. Let's add more fermented foods. You know, that might be an easy go-to. And that's actually not what you needed back then. So getting that support from a professional was really important in order for you to be where you are at today, right?
It was absolutely key. And you know, Zena, the other thing that we did, I kept a very detailed diary, very detailed. So every supplement I took, every food that passed my lips, how I felt, how my body was functioning, any symptoms, any wins, no matter what it is that I did, I diarized it. And then I spoke to her about it. So we started making some fabulous correlations and even things that she would suggest and say, well, would you like to try this? I would. But I started figuring out, and we'd go, oh, no, can't add that in. Got to change this. I started figuring out what it was that supported me the best. And it was all down to that you are your own best advocate. You need professional support. You need guidance. You need somebody to hold that space for you. And in my case, I needed somebody that knew a lot about the body. But you've still got to be your own best advocate, because if you just leave it up to that, nothing would have changed for you.
Yeah.
Nothing.
It's that level of self-awareness to listen to your body and to listen and respond to what it's telling you in that moment about certain foods or how your career or your way of living is impacting you, right? So there's that communication and awareness and sensitivity in this whole process, which I really like that.
Interesting that you said that, Zena. Just to go on to that point is, you know, through my career, I was almost body deaf. So I didn't listen to anything. And coming through this health journey, the biggest change for me was reconnecting with my body, reconnecting with me, reconnecting with listening to what it is that I needed. And isn't that amazing? Because that shift can change somebody's life.
That is huge. And that's going to serve you for the rest of your life. You have that connection. Yeah. So how long did it all take? How long did it take to regain your health? What did that journey look like?
Gosh, see, now I wish I could say that it took a week or a month, but in reality, it took quite a long time.
Yeah.
You know, after about 6 months, I started to feel so much better. And I think that it's just looking at where I was coming from. I've been ill for decades. So you can't reverse something that's been going on for decades in a matter of weeks or months. And it really is a journey. You know, and I went on this journey for many years, but as I said, after 6 months, I really started to feel so much better. I could function. I could function in all normal aspects of life. But to feel fully like me, it did take a little bit longer than that. And to get to where I am today, it took a few years, and it still is. It's an ongoing process. It's a journey, but I'm thriving today. I feel better than I did 30 years ago.
Awesome.
So, it's so worth it. That journey, it's not a sprint. It's not a quick fix. And I was looking for quick fixes. This is a journey. It's going on a path that takes you from one thing to the next. For me, it was building, building, and building. And first I had to unpeel the onion, and then I had to rebuild my life, rebuild my connections to me. And that takes time. And if you've got that time and you're prepared to make those small changes, they all add up. They all add up in the long run.
They do. And it's funny how many of us have been conditioned to look for the quick fixes. We need results like yesterday, right? And it's often not how it works, especially if it's worthwhile changes. It does take time, but eventually it's going to be so it's really going to be worth it. And like you say, today you're feeling better than you did 30 years ago. That's fantastic. That's a fantastic testimonial. So how did you find health coaching? So how did you make the shift from there onto health coaching?
So isn't that interesting? When food changed my life. So, when people saw me, they'd go, goodness, you're different. And go, yes, food changed my life. Lifestyle changed my life. But it was about food. And I wanted to stand on the mountaintops and shout it out to everybody. So I started researching what were the different careers that I could possibly look at where I could have an impact on other people. People started asking me questions, how did you do this? What did you do? So many people came to me because they saw the change in me, saw the difference in me. They could hear the difference in me. They could see I'd come alive. I was no longer feeling so broken down. And they could see that I was thriving and hear that I was thriving. So I researched it, and I looked at quite a few different health coaching places. And then I came across Health Coaches Academy. It's a world-class academy. And I was so excited when I found it and decided, well, this is really what I have to do. The timing is right. If I become a health coach, I can have the impact that I want with the credibility of having learned what it is that I need to know. So for me, it was just a vehicle to say, I can take my message, I can take what has happened to me and in my life, and I can share it, but not only share that message, more importantly, is allow other people to find that freedom. Allow other people to be able to take health back into their life as the control of their own health.
Yeah.
Because that is the biggest gift we can give anybody.
Oh, absolutely.
Is take control of your health. And so many people, we don't think that we can. So when I saw that about health coaching, it absolutely blew me away. And that was the path that I took.
But it often starts with ourselves. And that's something that we tell students in this course, in the second module, or pillar 2, as we call it, is to start with yourself. Look for where the gaps are. Sometimes it's food, but sometimes it's stress management. Sometimes it's getting support or delegating. It looks so different to different students. But if we look for those gaps and we really start to look for ways to nourish ourselves throughout this journey, like you said, it's something that people pick up on. Now, what's different? Something changed. And from there, it's often creating that ripple effect where we want to share it with people. And eventually we turn it into a business. And like you said, we want to shoot it from the rooftops. And that's often the pattern that we see, right?
I love that you've said that, Zena. It is, for me, I said, if it was a quick answer, I'd go, food changed my life. But it depends from the perspective from which you're coming. So many people, they come in, they talk, but I can relate on so many different levels because the journey was so holistic. So you're quite right. It depends, maybe it is about, there's some form of lifestyle management that comes into it. There's lifestyle change. There's mindset change, massive with regards to the way that we think. There's physiological change. How do we balance our bodies? But every single part of health is connected to every single person out there in some way, shape, or form. And they can relate to it in that. And if you do go from that perspective, there's always something that can drive that passion. And it shows people where that change is. And you're right, it depends on who the person is and what the journey is that they've come through. But there's something that's going to resonate with them.
Yeah, absolutely. And if that ripple effect starts and we want to share it with people around us, eventually, maybe turning it into a business, I think it's something that is extremely fulfilling. Because we see people go through that journey. So tell us more about your work as a health coach. What has it been like? What does a typical day maybe look like in your life?
So, being a health coach, Zena, it's my second career, but quite honestly, I've stepped into my purpose. This is what I was always meant to do. I'm so passionate about it. And what does my day look like? I do a lot of lifestyle prioritization for me. So I wake up really early, we take our dogs for a long walk, get out into nature, get outside, take those deep breaths, have that beautiful connection with my husband where we have long conversations. And there's so many ways that it sets me up for my day. And I then also start my day, I do a lot of prayer meditation. I do a lot of intentional work. What is my day's intention going to be about? And then I do a little bit of learning. There's always something that I'm learning. And at the moment, or it has been sort of 5 minutes a day, I'm doing a little bit of language learning, which is challenging me.
Really?
But I'm having a lot of fun. So I do something that's fun.
Yeah.
And then when I see my clients, and I've set it up that I always wanted to be successful. And I love having a successful health coaching practice. I'm full. My clients come in. I'm always there for my client. My focus is on my client. What is it that they need? What space do I need to hold for them? What step do they need to take? Where are they going to go with their journey? How is their life going to change? And I do my coaching. I've got some other, as you said, I do some work with HCA and with the hub. And that is just as fulfilling because it's seeing the impact that all of our health coaches are going to have out there. It's like this big wave of change. So I know that my day, if it were replicated by other people, imagine just that impact that we have as a conglomerate, as a group of people, that change, because it's not only those people's lives that change. My clients come back time and time again and they go, you won't believe the impact this has had on my kids or on my husband or on my wife or on my parents, on my best friend or on my group that go to the gym with me, or the people that I cycle with, or the people that I run with, or the people I do walking with, people that I go to cooking school with. There's so many examples. It's just the impact and the reach is so enormous. So that's really what my day looks like. I do take some breaks in between my day. I eat a very blood sugar balanced way of eating throughout my day. I'm very careful with how I nourish myself, but not only with food, with everything else that I do. So I choose to put into me what I know is going to nourish me. And that's heart, body, and mind, and soul, and just everything. It's all encompassing. There's that big question for me, and my whole journey has really been, what is going to nourish me? I've got to be able to answer that question, because if something's not nourishing me, I've got to be aware of it and the reasons why. But it's showing up every day, and that health coaching is so incredibly fulfilling, because people's stories, this is a small part of my story, but my client stories, unbelievable, where they go from not knowing what they wanted to do with their lives to finding a purpose, or not being able to eat something that is keeping their energy stable, to having stable energy, to people that have lost weight, to people that have changed their careers, to people that have changed how they think, their mindset, engendering a positive mental attitude. There's so many wins, there's so many changes, and that in itself changes people out there, just because of who they are and who they become.
Yes.
Health coaching is the most fulfilling. I never wake up and think, oh, it's got to work, because it isn't really work. It's just doing something that you absolutely love.
I really like that idea of, it's almost like that overarching core of your being, of your everyday existence is, how is this nourishing me? And in some cases, if we might be conditioned to think in a certain way, we might think, I shouldn't just think about myself. What about the people around me? I need to nourish them. I need to show up for them. But we've seen so often, if we're not nourishing ourselves, we can't show up as the best version of ourselves. And we end up resenting people around us, or burning out, and then we can't be there for them at all. Right. So I love that as a central and a core motto almost of your life, and always check in with every decision that you're making. Is this going to nourish me, so that I can give back? And I can obviously see that you are giving back to your clients, to the community in such a beautiful way. So if someone listening today wants to reach out and they want to maybe start working with you, how do they do that? Where do they find you?
You can find me on my website, and it's debimason.com. And Debi is spelled in the short form DebiMason. Or if somebody wanted to email me, it's Deb, which is DEB, at Debi Mason. Once again, the short form DebiMason.com. And welcome. Anybody's welcome to get a hold of me if they would like to.
Thank you, Debi.
I would love to hear other people's stories.
Yeah, I can see it's something that you obviously care about it quite a lot, and you're curious and excited to help people and to feel the same transformation, go through the same transformation that you have. So do you maybe have one last thought or maybe a piece of advice that you want to leave our listeners with?
Yes, what is the most, if you think about it, what is the biggest commodity that we have that is of value to us? And we usually would think that it is time. But time, we can't change it. We can't get it back. So what is the biggest commodity we can have? It's really health, because our health goes with us forever, wherever we are. And I think that too many of us wait until we hit rock bottom, or too many of us wait until things go absolutely pear-shaped or things go wrong. And we always say, I'll do that tomorrow, or I'll start next week, or I'll start next month, or I'll start next year. But the time really is now, because time moves forward, but our health is with us. It underpins everything that we do. And we are our own best advocate. We can fight the hardest for us. We can fight on every level of what is best for us. So it's always taking that step now and going, well, if not now, when? And then remembering, ask that question, what is nourishing me? And is this nourishing me today?
Lovely. Thank you. I don't know if everyone out there listening today isn't extremely inspired. I don't know what will inspire you. Thank you, Debi. It was really, really great story that you shared with us today. And I'm sure many people out there will resonate. And so often we end up in a situation where we feel stuck, right? Exactly where you were many years ago. But knowing that there's always options, there's usually something that you can do. If someone can just help you to look at the bigger picture, or know, okay, what is the next step that I need to take? And that there is usually something that we can do. So that's really the hopeful message, that change is possible. And I think with that, something else that I'm taking from this conversation is, when we're setting up our business as a health coach, we shouldn't just focus on the practical side of things. The website, the tax, all of those things, but also think about, how will this fit into my life? How will my business nourish me? How can my business support my own joy and my own health? And I think your story is such a brilliant way to illustrate exactly that. So thank you, Debi, and thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you, Zina. Thanks for having me.
If you have a passion for health and wellness, and you would like to make a difference in the lives of others and discover a new rewarding career in health and well-being coaching, visit www.healthcoachesacademy.com to find out more.